Hi, hi, hi. Good morning or good afternoon. I hope everyone is doing well. Thank you for joining me on this live. My name is Ifeoma Odunlami, immigration attorney from the Odunlami Law Firm. And I have a topic today that I think will be of interest to a lot of immigrants, especially people living in Florida. Um, and so that's what we're going to talk about today. Thank you guys for joining me. Please make sure you put in the comments any questions you have after I'm done with my presentation. I have about 30 minutes, so let's make the best out of it. Thank you guys for joining me. So today we are going to talk about the new Florida immigration law. And this law this Senate bill was signed into law by Governor DeSantis May 10th, 2023, and it's going to go into place July 1st of 2023. So does anybody know what I'm talking about? If you do, give me a thumbs up on the comment section. We're talking about SB 1718. So why is this important for you to know this? Well, this new bill, this new law is the most anti-immigrant law that's been passed in a long time since the administration of Donald Trump. And it's going to affect people who are not documented, as well as people who are who are documented, U.S. citizens, green card holders, and other people. So it's important for you guys to know what's going on. And to be quite frank, I really think that this law will, I don't know how it can stand a constitutional challenge, because quite frankly, it's imposing on the right of the federal government. So I don't know how that's going to work, but let me go over what this new bill is. So this new bill makes e-verify mandatory for any employer with 25 or more employees. So basically, if an employer has people who are undocumented working with them, they are subject to suspension, revocation of their license, and other penalties. Now, this is actually a law. This is a law that's in place right now. Even with employers are not allowed to hire people who have no documentation. But this Florida law actually goes further than the law we have right now, federal law, because it's really actually looking to suspend licenses of employers and other penalties. Now, you may think, well, that doesn't concern me. I'm not an employer. But guess what? In Florida, especially in the farming industry, construction industry, hospitality industry, at least 40% of the people working there are undocumented. So if you don't have undocumented people working in these areas, U.S. citizens and green card holders are not online waiting to work at the farms. So this is going to show up in your grocery bill, when all of a sudden the cost of orange juice goes up, or the price of other fruits, or the hospitality industry, construction, these are not jobs that U.S. citizens are vying to get. And so this is going to create a chilling effect. Now, the one that is really, really scary is this law that says that if you are harboring an undocumented person, you could face felony charges and fines, which is jail time and fines. So it could be as easy as you have your mother who's undocumented in your car and you're stopped by the police. According to this Florida bill, that could get that person a felony charge. So what are you going to do? Are you going to ask people before they get into your car, can I see your green card? I mean, this law is ridiculous. So it's basically impinging on your rights as well, because if you don't know who is in your car, who you're transporting, you're basically opening yourself up to being a criminal, being charged with a felony. Now, the other thing is that the Florida law basically invalidates the IDs of given to undocumented people in other states. So as you guys know, other states such as New York, Massachusetts, maybe California, you can get a driver's license even if you have no legal status in this country. And listen, guys, this makes sense because if you're involved in an accident, you want to make sure that that other person has insurance. If people are not allowed to have driver's license, they cannot get insurance, and that endangers everybody. That's basically the thinking of all the states. But what Florida is saying is, if you have a driver's license, say from Maryland, because Maryland gave you a driver's license, even though you have no status, you cannot drive with that driver's license in Florida. And if you do so, you'll be subject to penalties. And basically, Florida is saying that if you're undocumented and you're caught in Florida, they will be setting you up, letting ICE get that, giving you up to ICE. Basically, that's what they're saying. Now, the other thing that this Florida law is requiring is that hospitals should collect and submit data provided to them about undocumented people. So basically, if you go to an emergency room, there's going to be a question. If that hospital accepts Medicaid, there's going to be a question on whether or not the person is a U.S. citizen, whether the person is lawfully present in the United States, or whether the person is not lawfully present in the United States. And guys, this is really scary. Think about it. So if somebody has a health emergency, they're going to be afraid to go to the police. They're going to be afraid to go to the hospital and get treatment. And this really is really scary for for victims of trafficking, right? Who are now going to be, they're going to be silenced. This law is going to create an effect where people who are not documented are afraid to come out of the shadows. They're afraid to get treatment. They're afraid to report the fact that they've been trafficked or that they've been abused. They're afraid to discuss to let the government or the law enforcement agencies know this, because in Florida that will get you that will get them to put you in put ICE directed at you. So that's really what that is. So now looking at this law, right, it really impinges on federal law. A state does not have the right to tell, does not have the right to make these laws because the federal immigration law already has things in place. So I don't know how this law is going to withstand constitutional scrutiny. But regardless, we're getting a lot of calls from clients asking whether they should leave Florida. And my answer to that is, we prefer our states to be our clients to be in immigrant-friendly states, right? But everyone is not able to stay in immigrant-friendly states. Some people have to live in Florida. They have to live in Texas. So my suggestion is, if you can't move away from Florida because you have nowhere else to go, then you want to be careful. And that's why I want to read out the know your rights. It's important for you to know your rights as an immigrant, whether you're documented or not documented. All right. So let's start by what should all this know my rights. This is bringing back Trump vibes. We used to do all these seminars all the time during the Trump administration, telling people what their rights are. So let's talk about, if an ICE agent approaches you on the street or in public, what do you do? So the officer may call your name and ask you to confirm your name and then detain you. Before you say your name or anything else, ask, am I free to go? You're basically asking, am I being arrested? So if they say yes, then you should say, I don't want to answer your question, or I'd rather not speak with you right now, and walk away calmly. Be polite. If they say no and tell you you're not free to walk away, then use your right to remain silent. You can say, I want to use my right to remain silent, not to answer questions. Or you can say, I want to speak to a lawyer. and you do not have to answer any questions. This goes for anybody who is documented or not documented, okay? Just because you're not documented does not mean you don't have these rights. You do have these rights, and you should know them because of this kind of crazy anti-immigrant laws. Now, if the officers start to search your belongings or your pockets, you should say to them clearly, I do not consent to a search. Don't lie. Don't show false documents. Don't flee, and don't resist arrest, please. Now, don't answer questions about your immigration status. Don't answer questions about where you were born. They will use this information you provide against them. And do not provide them any documents such as your passports, your consular IDs, or expired visa. If you're in a criminal court for a court date, ask to speak to your public defender before they take you away, right? Are you guys understanding this, right? Good. Now, if officers come to your house, how do you know they're from ICE? Well, sometimes you don't know, because sometimes officers will pretend to be the police, and they will say they want to talk to you about an identity theft or an ongoing investigation. You should ask them for warrants from behind your door. Don't open the door. Ask for a warrant signed by a judge. If the ICE agents do not have a warrant signed by a judge, they cannot enter the home without permission from an adult. Opening the door when they knock does not give them permission to enter your home. So you might want to kind of open the little and say, what's going on? And say, okay, do you have a warrant? Can I see the warrant? Or you might be indoor and say, do you have a warrant? Slide it under the door. Now, if the officers are at your door, first of all, find out if they are from DHS or from ICE. Try to stay calm, be polite, don't lie. Lying never helps, guys. It never helps. You can say, I don't want to talk to you right now, calmly and politely. Ask them if they have a warrant signed by a judge. The warrant has to be signed by a judge, and ask them to slip it under the door. If they don't have one, you can decline to let them in. It's your choice. You do not have to let them in. Even if you open the door a little, you do not have to let them in. You can open the door and close it back and say, I'm not comfortable talking to you right now. Slide the documents under the door. I prefer that you don't even open the door at all and just ask them these questions from behind, from the safety of your home with your door locked. Now, if they say they're looking for somebody else, ask them to leave their contact information. You don't have to tell them where to find the person. And again, like I said, you should not lie. All right? Now, what can you do if ICE is inside your home to make an arrest? Tell them if there are children or other vulnerable residents at home. Ask them to step outside unless they have a warrant signed by a judge. If they came inside without your permission, tell them, I do not consent to you being in my home. Please leave. If they start to search rooms or items in your home, tell them, I do not consent to your search. If ICE is arresting you, tell them if you have medical issues or you need to arrange for childcare. All right? So now let's talk about what your rights are if you're being arrested by ICE. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to speak to a lawyer. Do not lie. It can only hurt you in the future. You do not need to share any information about where you were born, what your immigration status is, what your criminal record is. Ask to speak to an attorney instead of answering these questions. So are you getting the vibe? Ask to speak to an attorney and don't give them any personal information. You should not give them your passport, your consular documents, unless they have a warrant from a judge. And another thing, you should not sign any documents without an attorney present. All right? So, I'm not saying this to scare anybody, because this is really just happening in Florida, but we're not really sure what is going to happen with this law. It goes into effect July 1st, 2023. The Know Your Rights is for you to know how to conduct yourself if for any reason ICE approaches you or you're arrested because you have no documentation. All right? I hope that was helpful, guys. So let me answer questions. I'm going to go scroll all the way back. And then, let's see. I'm going to start by answering questions from Facebook. So D. Cadian Don says, what if you're married to a U.S. citizen and you're currently doing your paperwork, but they are not submitted yet, and you live in Florida? What are your options? So D. Cadian Don, well, it really doesn't matter where you submit your paperwork, because if you leave Florida, you do a change of address and your case is moved to wherever you are. So if you're married to a U.S. citizen and you're currently doing your paperwork, but they're not submitted yet, the question really is, where do you live right now? If you live in Florida, submit it. Okay. If you're thinking you're going to leave Florida, then go ahead and still submit it. When you leave, you change your do your change of address, and your case is going to be moved to where you are. So that, I don't anticipate that being a problem. I mean, you're married to a U.S. citizen. I would say just go ahead and file this document as soon as possible if you're living in Florida, so that at least you have a filed paperwork. You have a paperwork that has been filed. Okay. So I have Oye Tayo Akin says, hello, Ma. I'm Tayo, Nigerian citizen, but I have UK residence permit. How can I relocate to the USA, please? Tayo, that's a loaded question. There's so many ways to relocate to United States, but I don't know which one you qualify for. I would have to screen you, do a proper consultation, but some of the ways to apply to relocate to US is if you have a family member, a spouse, a parent, or a child over 21 who's a U.S. citizen, they can file for you. It would depend on how old you are. If it depends on how old you are. It depends on whether you're married. It depends on if you're an immediate relative. If you're an immediate relative, you can get to the United States faster. If you're not an immediate relative, it will take a little while. If you can also get come to the United States through employment. If you have somebody here who's willing to file for you, you can come here. You can also, if there's investor visas, you can also get here. So you have to figure out whether you qualify for any of those ways. And there are other ways as well, but I would need to know your story to see if you qualify. The wish of just wishing to be in the United States is not really, it takes a little more than that. There are rules as to how people can come into the United States and how they can get legal documentation to work. So that would be, hi, Marvelous. Thank you. You say you finally caught a light. Thank you for joining me. Where are you calling from? So let's go on to another question. So Hajia Rose says, I have a question. Can my married husband marry another woman without my consent? And how does this affect my green card? So Hajia, I'm really sorry to hear that your married husband wants to marry another woman. Now, remember, if your married husband wants to marry another woman in the United States, that's a crime. That's called bigamy. He's not allowed to be married to more than one person at a time. Now, how does it affect your green card? I would need to know what your status is, right? What is going on in your case? Have you filed? But if your husband is trying to be bigamous, that's not actually a problem for you. That's his problem. But I can give you more information without knowing more about your case. So if you want to call my office, please feel free to do so, 973-993-1900, and let's see how we can help you. So going on, really sad. I know Olami Sharp said it's really sad. Honestly, it is so sad because it feels like, undocumented people are being hunted. They've been hunted down like animals. People have a right to dignity, whether you're documented or you're not documented. People have a right to live with dignity. And, making it a crime to, to have somebody who's undocumented in your car or in your home, subjecting them to felony. I mean, really, that's ridiculous, But, Florida, what can I say? Now, let's go back to see if I have another question. Let's see. So, Auto Doctor One says, "Hello, attorney. Just want to know the processing time for VAWA." So, Auto Doctor, that's a really great question. Right now, we're seeing the processing time according to USCIS on their case processing website is 2.5 years. However, sometimes VAWA comes earlier, sometimes it can even come later. So the processing time really talks about 80% of VAWA cases. We've had VAWA cases approved within 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. But on the average, you should really look at 2 years, 2.5 years. Okay? All right. That was a great question. And then Chef J. Biggie says, "Good afternoon. My name is Mickey, and I was deported in 2010, and my family reside in New York. What steps can I take in filing to return?" That's a great question, Chef J. Biggie. So we would need to actually talk to you because we would like to know why you got deported, because the reasons you got deported have an effect on whether you can come back. There's also the issue with regards to who is your family residing in New York. Is it your spouse? That would be helpful because that means that you can, it's easier for you to come back if you have a U.S. citizen or green card holder spouse here. But we need to know more information, so I can't give you steps without knowing your story. But it's important to know the reasons you were deported because that counts to whether or not you can come back. And yes, people get deported because of a crime and they can still come back. Not every crime is not the same. All crimes are not equal, so to speak. Now I have a question from Crown 2013 who says, "How do you handle U visa filings?" Crown 2013, I don't understand this question, but U visa filings, we handle them like every other person. We first of all file try to get a certificate of helpfulness from the police or any law enforcement agent. We need them to sign the I-918B. Once that's signed, we file the U visa with all the information we have. We have a declaration, we have proof, we have a psych evaluation. We put it together. If we need to file a waiver with a petition, we prepare that, and then we file it and wait to hear. As you know, U visa filings are taking a while, about 5 years. And if the person is approved, then they get 4 years on a U visa. On the 3rd year, they can adjust their status and apply to get a green card. So that's how U visa filings are done in a nutshell. Call Mel Mid says, "What's the cool way to get a green card as F1?" F1, I think F1 could be a student visa, but I think you mean on a married child of a U.S. citizen. So that's a preference. So the way to get a green card as F1 if you are an unmarried child of a U.S. citizen. Now, there's a little backlog on that file on that category. So you want to file the I-130 and then wait for your priority date to be reached. And then when it's reached, then you proceed with whatever other way. It could be NVC, could be adjustment of status, whichever way. Okay. So Patience Ukumi says, "Please, I would like to talk one-on-one. How do I get you online?" So Patience, I don't really talk to people online, so you need to call my office, 973-993-1900, okay? And schedule an appointment. Rachel Wanjohi says, "Does asylum case come up when you go for marriage-based interview?" So Rachel, that's a really great question. So I'm assuming you filed an asylum and you also married a U.S. citizen or green card holder and you have a marriage interview. Well, it's not supposed to come up in the sense that you're not there to answer questions about asylum at a marriage-based interview. But some officers will try to ask a couple questions, but they're not really supposed to ask asylum questions. They're not supposed to ask asylum questions on a marriage-based interview. So typically they may ask you, did you file asylum? And of course you did because they have that record. And there's nothing wrong with having an asylum case and having a marriage-based case, because you can have both of them proceeding. In my office, we don't withdraw the asylum case until the client has their green card. I mean, some people go ahead and withdraw it, but we prefer to have both cases going concurrently until we get a green card. Now, it depends on the case. If you have a really weak asylum case, maybe your attorney may think that's what they should do. It really depends on the case. But to answer your question, it will come up that you filed an asylum, but they're not supposed to ask you questions about your asylum case at your marriage-based interview. That's why it's good to go with an attorney, because we would tell them, you're not supposed to ask these questions. Hey, Cadian. Cadian says, my favorite lawyer. Love to see you, Cadian. How are you? All right. Good afternoon. So thank you for joining, Cadian. So let's go to another question. Olayinka says, how many months does it take to have your citizenship if you put it in, please? So Olayinka, it really varies. USCIS is really working hard on getting citizenship cases processed. We've had several clients that we filed citizenship cases and we got interviews within 6 weeks. It's amazing. I've noticed that those interviews are coming faster. So I tell my clients, once we file, you need to start studying your 100 questions because you have to. They're going to ask you 10. You have to get 6. So I would say it varies, depending on where you live. But the good news is that they're really working hard to put the citizenship cases faster. So if you file now, there's a good chance you'll get an interview sooner than later. Okay. All right. So Izihida says, so a friend got referred to immigration lawyer, but she also have a partner she wants to marry. She doesn't know if it will be a problem. So your friend got referred to, do you mean immigration court or immigration lawyer? Because having an immigration lawyer does not prevent you from getting married. And if you mean immigration court and your friend wants to get married, that should not be a problem. But I want to remind you that if you get married while you're in immigration proceedings, there's a heightened scrutiny on the case. And when you file the application, you have to make a bona fide marriage exemption request. You must, okay? But I would suggest that if your friend is in an immigration court, they must be talking to a lawyer, because this is serious. Immigration court is serious, okay? All right. Lily Gabriel says, good afternoon, best attorney. Good afternoon, Lily Gabriel. Thank you for joining me. Now, Dami Arillo says, what happens next if your VAWA case is denied? So, Dami, if your VAWA case is denied, one of two things. Depending on why it was denied, you can file to appeal it. Or if maybe you didn't put a strong case the first time and you're still able to refile because you're within the time to refile, you might want to refile. So it depends. It depends on why it was denied. Now, if it was denied because your first marriage was not properly terminated and then you married a U.S. citizen and they're denying it because they're saying that the marriage to a U.S. citizen is void, there's not much you can do, because if the marriage is void, you cannot get any benefits from that. But if your VAWA case was denied, you should talk to an attorney right away. All right? Okay, guys, I'm not going to be here on longer. Sylvester says, do you have an office in South Florida? No, I don't have an office in South Florida. However, because immigration law is federal law, we have clients in all 50 states, and we're able to have clients from all over without them having to be in New Jersey. So Presley Gordon says, hello, good day. I was deported in 1992. I was deported on voluntary departure, but I got arrested before I left the country. How can I go about applying for a visa? So Presley Gordon, there's a lot of information I need to be able to answer this question. You went out on voluntary departure. What were you arrested for? What type of visa are you applying for? So if you want assistance, call my office, 973-993-1900. All right. So the and Gwele says, I have a question, but you just came onto my live. All right. What's the question? Because I only have 4 minutes. I'm going to head out now. Thank you so much. You're welcome, Olayinka. Izida says immigration court based on asylum. You know, Izida, I know I answered your question, but I can't remember what that question was. And I have to run, so it's going to take me more time to scroll back. So catch me on the next live, or you can send me a DM, ask a question, and I'll see how we can assist you. So the Nguela says, what do you think about some people who are in the United States 8 years ago and do a lot of things like making businesses, buy their own house, but they don't have a green card? Do you think there's something we can do? Diane Gwele, just because you have a business and you have your own home is not a pathway to a green card. There are specific pathways to a green card. And you should talk to an attorney to see what you qualify for. But having a home and having a business, is not the qualification. Now, business, you could look at the investment visa, but do you have unlawful presence? Those are the things that we need to be looking into. So talk to an attorney, okay? All right? Okay. Yes, Dianguele, talk to an attorney. Preferably, because this is a business type thing you're talking about, you have businesses, talk to an attorney that does investment visas, talk to an attorney that does employment immigration, okay? We don't do that, so cannot help you with that. What Beautiful says, gosh, I have like 2 minutes. What are the process for F1 students filing for change of status? There's a form, I think it's form I-589, maybe it is, I don't remember, but there's a form that allows you to change your status. And that form is available for everybody who wants to change their status. Let's see. All right, so I think that's all the questions. So Spicy Beck says, can a job file for green card for somebody who their I-485 was previously denied? Again, Spicy Beck, it depends on why the I-485 was denied. It depends on if you have unlawful presence, because if you have unlawful presence, your job may not be able to file for you. So you should go talk to an employment lawyer and see if they can assist you. And so Samuel Oti says, hi, madam. If after interview and review over a year, USCIS request for evidence of a completed medical on the form I-485, does that mean I-130 is already approved? No. When your I-130 is approved, you will get an approval of your I-130. Until then, it's not approved. So, guys, I'm sorry I got to go, but I have to end this broadcast for now because I have a 2 o'clock and it's 1:59. But it was a pleasure chatting with you guys, and I'll be back, okay? Take care. And if you ask questions and I didn't respond, send it to my DM. Let's see if we can assist you, okay? Bye.